Hey, Miguel Arati and the big guy Cadillac back here on the CRP. And we're going to talk about Colby Covington. He's coming off his big win over Robbie Lawler this past weekend in the UFC on ESPN 5 card that came to us from New Jersey. It was a dominant win. I mean, he won 50-45, 50-45, 50-44. So you can't really knock his in-ring performance. Lawler, didn't do anything.
I can.
And, after that, though, he showed himself to be a little bit classless in the post-fight ring, and if you're going to count, maybe adrenaline and he's not thinking or whatever.
No.
In the post interviews and stuff like that afterwards, he sort of backed up what he said and stuff. And he didn't really care. And, that's the subject, is how bad is that? Some people want to let it go by. Some people, say, hey, they're with that. You want to trash talk, you get as much as, and, then there's a large core of people that feel he crossed the line. So, Chad, I'll let you take it away because I know, with Matt Hughes involved with the with Soda Pop in the Matt Hughes Challenge, that, there's something that, you feel you want to get off your chest, too.
Okay, well, let me start by saying this. I can argue that Colby Covington doesn't deserve a shot, and here's a couple of reasons why. Statistically, you can look all this up, but statistically, fighters who get championship shots get those shots because they're finishers. Colby Covington is 0-8 in his last 8 wins with finishes. And I believe he's 10-0 in his last 10 fights, if I'm correct. I think that's right. Check my numbers for me, but whatever it is, I don't like the guy, so I try not to follow him because he's such a scumbag. But nonetheless, most fighters win 3 or 4 fights in a row, and if they finish at least 50% or more of those fights, it actually winds up to be like 63.5% or something. I forget what the actual statistical analysis is, but some statistician out there is rolling their head at me right now. Regardless, Colby Covington is not a finisher. He's a take him down, put him against the fence, hold him there, and baby pat him until you can get away. Okay, so somebody says, oh, that's bullshit. He attempted the most punches in UFC history with 500 punches. Let me back that up and remind you of the part that you missed. He attempted to hit Robbie 500 times. His actual striking that landed was in the hundreds, right? 102, 118. I've heard different numbers. I don't know which one's right. But it's not even 150 punches out of 500. Now in boxing, if I'm not wrong, they call that empty in the tank, right? Because every punch you throw that misses is worth takes out more energy takes 3 times as much energy as throwing 1 punch that lands. So even if you jab and that jab lands, and then you jab 5 more times and none of those land, the 5 punches that don't land drain you 3 times faster than those that do. The fact that Colby's got a great gas tank is not in question here. The fact that Colby has no power behind his punches is very much in question here. And I think I hope to God that they let somebody let's let Masvidal have a talk with Colby and see what happens first. And I hate to do that to George. He's great and he deserves the fight, but
well, they're friends, right? You know that, right?
Who cares? George doesn't. George will hit anyone.
I understand that, but
he can hit. Colby couldn't hit him hard enough to give him a bloody lip. And
yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, 500 punches are based on setting up a takedown.
I understand what you're saying. There are a couple of incongruencies to and I understand that you're mad, so we forgive you and stuff like that. But, George St. Pierre didn't finish anybody, and this is his weight class, and we dealt with him as a champion for a while. And,
yeah.
you know, Covington has, with his mouth, put the UFC, you know, in a situation where they really basically have to give him the title fight, unless, you know, they're actually going to, you know, take a step in a direction, you know, that they haven't done before. You know, I mean,
well, maybe the UFC. Let me interrupt. Maybe
I don't. But I don't remember.
Let me interrupt.
Let me get my point off, though. I don't remember what the details were around it. And I know what he said wasn't pretty at all. And I'm not defending Miguel Torres. But Miguel Torres got cut by the UFC for some Twitter comments or something that was offensive, you know. And I'm not saying that you can cut Colby Covington or you should cut Colby Covington, but, you know, maybe they should consider it, you know, or at the very least maybe block a title shot, you know, and tell them, you know, that's not conduct becoming a champion. They could probably do that based on their contract that gives them the right to do that. And they seem to do that, like I said, in the past, when they want to prove a point, you know, they can do whatever they want. So, but I think they're going to let it ride, and that Covington is not going to get chastised by the UFC. We'll see if he gets a chastisement from his home team. Anyway, take it away.
Well, let's hope that American Top Team has a talk with him, because American Top Team stands for everything that is good and true in MMA. I'm not going to go into my ties with American Top Team on this because I think that's unclassy. But what I will say is this: if the people at American Top Team that I know don't take any steps to, at least at an absolute minimum, admonish him for what he's done and explain that shit doesn't cut it here. Don't ever say something like that again. If they don't do that, I'm going to lose an awful lot of respect for some people that I've respected for a very, very long time. And I'm talking about respected them since they were in a garage in a strip mall. So I cannot fathom a couple of people, specifically at American Top Team, letting this go. And I'm sure they won't. They're going to say, hey, no more of that shit.
You know, it's been a long time, so I'm not sure. You know, who knows, you know, who's in charge or exactly how those things get decided.
Well, that has changed a lot.
They seem to have a lot of representation and a lot of lawyers and a lot of stuff like that. But the one thing that can be said, and, you know, I'm going to use the name Dan Lambert, and I usually keep his name out of things that we talk about, but he's a more public figure now. He was mentioned during the UFC broadcast.
Yep.
As being on Covington's corner and stuff.
Yep.
Well, Dan is also part of Matt Hughes' recovery team.
He absolutely is. He absolutely is.
And I know you may want that type of thing behind the scenes and stuff like that, but, you know, and this is just my opinion, but I think Matt still has his own money. I don't think he needs Dan for the money. I think he needs Dan for the guidance, and he's a part of that. So I think Dan very well may speak to Covington at some point, and at the very least what we'll get is no repetition of it. I don't know how. The problem is they built such an acerbic personality here. Is I don't know how he can come out and apologize, and all the jerks that are saying, hey, it's okay for him to badmouth Matt Hughes will say, he's a win for apologizing. So he's really not in a position where he can please everybody.
Well, and look, Miguel, let's face it. Has anybody with a MAGA hat on apologized for anything ever? Have you ever heard these people say one time, oh, yeah, well, you know, I did say that, you know, while I was wearing that stupid red hat that all these kids got their heads blown off in this school and it was all fake. Have any of them said, I'm sorry about that? Have they said, I'm sorry about going to grave sites? I can't even get into that shit right now. I'm so furious about this. I'm disgusted. I'm utterly disgusted with this scumbag, and that the UFC is going to allow him to tap dance into a spot where he's actually literally going to fight to be the championship, the representative of the UFC for the entire world. And if there's one thing I've learned, it's this. I travel a lot. I travel a lot for my son who has traumatic brain injury, and my son and Matt Hughes are now in the exact same treatment facility for traumatic brain injury. I know it's stuff that I'm not gonna drag all of that out because that's his business, not anyone else's. But I can tell you this: the Matt Hughes that was taken to court and all of that stuff right before he began these treatments was a Matt Hughes who could not remember how to mow a ditch and then how to mow the next ditch. If you check out his Facebook and Instagrams from this weekend, it says stem cell update number 3. I have now been able to go all day without asking which ditch I'm supposed to mow next. Now, take that, put that into a position where you walk into your house where your wife is supposed to be gone at X time and someone's in the shower. And through the shower curtain grabs said person. Because having no idea, brain not working correctly at all, recovering from a fucking train running into his head. And from that, said person sells the rights to TMZ before the court date. I wonder what might be on said person's mind. Said person, let's just say, also decided not to let Matt pursue that line of treatment until he went to court again because she didn't want him to take her money and hide it somewhere overseas, as if that was anything to do with what he was doing. The detestable, disgusting rhetoric that is going on about Matt Hughes after a brain injury is beyond barbaric. It is intolerable to me for people to believe that Matt Hughes can simply, because he's the champ, he can overcome this brain injury in 2 years. And they set it up so he looks good on camera, and that's all set up. And now when you see it, now when you hear him talk, when you hear him deliver a message to my son, and you see him break down crying, now you can understand exactly what the real Matt Hughes is going through. This is the battle of his life. And for this douchebag piece of shit, attention-seeking dickhole to go out and beat Robbie Lawler with takedowns, throw a bunch of punches he didn't mean to land so he could get the takedown, so he could put him against the fence and love tap him and win by decision again for the 8th time in a row. Where you at, Colby? Can you knock somebody out? Tough guy. I have no sympathy. I have no tolerance for that of any kind. None. For him to evoke Matt Hughes' injury in any way, shape, or form, no matter what Matt Hughes said about it, no matter that Matt Hughes took the high road and said, maybe he shouldn't have done that with my injury, but it was a heck of a fight, and you got to be thick-skinned in this sport. There's a goddamn difference between being thick-skinned and picking on somebody who's defenseless at the moment. I hope and pray that Matt gets well enough that he can take that one more fight. And I know that will never happen, but I would love for him to get so well that he could take that one more fight and crush Colby Covington's skull into paste. I'd love to see him make a soup bowl out of your fucking skull, you scumbag.
No, and, you know, I understand. I really do, because when he said it, it's just, you know, I guess the modern term is it was just a cringe. I closed my eyes. I was like, oh, no. You know, because you can't undo it, right? And then he doubled up on it and stuff like that. He doesn't come across as smart to me at all. He's not the kind of guy that, you know, I put on there, you know. He came out with the glasses, the fake smile in the interview and stuff like that. It's not, you know, it's not a well put together package right now. It's a very forced thing, and he doesn't look, you know, real good. So I think that stuff writes itself. Some people may like it, but here's one of the things that is a problem, and this is to anybody out there who's listening, especially from the Hughes camp, and that is that Matt did get a wave of bad publicity throughout the early part of these reports and stuff like that. And he hasn't overcome that. There's still a lot of people that remember, oh, Matt Hughes beat up his wife, and and stuff
bullshit.
like that.
It's bullshit.
Yeah, and that's the thing is I wish that they would look further, but most Americans won't look into it further. You know what I mean? So there's always going to be that there. But from what I've seen, the bottom line is Matt's still on the tractor and he's having memory problems and stuff like that. That's just a part of it because if I'm not mistaken, there was some paralysis involved. And I've seen some videos of him going through physical therapy and hooked up and stuff like that with machines and things like that. So, especially with his brother, who's, at the very least, his brother also had an MMA career. It's his twin. So, you're not going to say, well, he's a weak little guy, right? No, he's, and look, the bottom line is I don't think he could beat up his brother in the condition he's in.
No way. No way.
So, the girl may have been scared in the shower. It's hard for me to quantify that if he tried to grab her or anything. But at some point, you do. What you have to realize there is I don't want to badmouth her or him in that case. But after this type of injury, you almost inevitably wind up with a divorce. The couples do not stay together.
She called him, Miguel, she called him a 200-pound baby that she has to take care of every day.
I think she signed up for that, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, that's called marriage. So she sure didn't have any problem taking his checkbook.
And again, I mean, it's all a very painful situation, but to me, that all stuff is best kept in private, right? So that became public, and Matt got the wave of the bad publicity. And so there are a lot of people out there that say, Matt, he's a scumbag, we don't care. And I think that's wrong too, and that really needs some type of repackaging on the part of the UFC. The UFC had Matt out as a guest at one point, and they did a little bit of a celebration there. But I don't think they fully embraced. Keep in mind, Matt at one point was on salary as one of their spokespeople and stuff like that. Yeah. And at some point before the injury, honestly, that relationship ended. Like maybe the contract ended or whatever, and they stopped sending him a check and stuff. They could count on him to always speak well. Always. And they knew that he wouldn't, he hadn't run out of money. So they cut him off a little bit.
Well, and did you see
salary for them? You would think that they would care more and that there'd be more than hey, look, walk him out to the ring, play the Cowboy song again, and then have people get weepy. No, I want updates. Why are we getting updates on his recovery? Why isn't that always on their channel and things like that? They have a selective memory.
Yeah, they have a mask. They've got his name over one of the doors. I'm not sure that that's still there. I think that's only on fight night now. I'll have to check into that. But here's the thing. I want you to just try and think, okay, Miguel, okay, this is you and I talking, and we're not live, and we're just having a conversation. And you say to me, well, Matt Hughes beat up his wife, and, he attacked his brother's kid, and his brother got involved in this. I want you to take a couple things into consideration, knowing me and my situation with my son and everything that's going on around us as farmers and all of that. Matt Hughes has a sister who has stood by his side in every single aspect and loves, admires, and adores him. And I can't say that. What I can say is she's never one time ever not supported Matt. Ever. I can't. Anyways, when you ask me that, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to say, when you have a brain injury with axonal shearing that literally goes almost completely to the brainstem, your memory is destroyed, specifically your short-term memory. That means that every day, every minute of every day, it's a brand new day. It's Groundhog's Day all the time. So when you look in your door, you're seeing your house for the first time over and over again. And when it's not, you can't remember where your keys are at You can't remember where your car is parked in your driveway. You can't remember where the light switch is at to walk into the bathroom and turn it on. You can't remember what your son's name is. It's that bad. And for the press to pick up and feast on this and act like he's some kind of a howling animal who's out there beating women and just this abusive horror show. For a person to say the things that they have said about him on YouTube, and for them to say that, knowing what I know about their relationship and the fact that a specific person in that relationship never, ever wanted to go. And you can look up a video where that same person calls him an asshole. This is during their marriage. This isn't after everything happened. This is when the UFC is trying to show, hey, Matt's doing better. He's getting well. And imagine, Miguel, that your wife says to me, well, Miguel's not the person he used to be, and now he's just a 200-pound baby, and I have to change his diapers. Does that leave you feeling particularly good about your relationship? Does that leave you feeling like you've been the woman that you've loved and admired, respected, cherished, cared for, provided for? There was no job there. It was go buy shoes or do whatever you want to do. And I don't mean that in a sexist way, because if it were the other way around, I'm sure it would have been the same thing. But he was the primary breadwinner. And I don't mean by a little, I mean by a lot. And it was all great until he became champion and became so famous that she no longer could manipulate the situation. And she says as much in that video, if you'll watch it. When the people that I'm working with saw that video, their jaws dropped and they said, that is not the man that we met. I can't believe that his spouse would say that about him. How degrading. And he saw it. Did you see the pictures in court when he's crying, bawling his eyes out because his kids and his family have just been ripped out of his life at the worst possible moment ever? Oh yeah, there's this other little thing that happened. It's called farming. And when you farm in a family farm and the patriarch dies, the land has to be left to somebody. The land has to be divided up amongst the kids. So I'm not saying that there's another motive, but I'm not saying there's not either. So people might want to understand that there's a lot more involved than just Matt Hughes beat up his wife and tried to set a tractor on fire because his brother tried to take his tractor and Matt was proving the point. This is my tractor. He's out of his mind. He's not thinking correctly because his brain got hit by a train. And you're judging him? So that's my answer to that. Sorry.
No, like I said, I think that the Hughes team should wake up a little bit and smell the coffee, because I think the reaction to Covington's rant after the fight should have been universal. Like, everybody should have been like, but the work hasn't been done, and there are enough people who still think of Hughes in a negative light because of all the negative stuff that has come to light, from his girl and, brother and stuff like that. And like you said, with, inheritances and money and divorces and things like that, it just became an ugly situation. And, in public is the worst thing. So, I don't see how it helps. I hope American Top Team. I wish the UFC would discipline Covington in some way, shape, or form.
Yes, I'm calling for that.
Make him give half his purse to CTE,
research.
Research. Yeah, that's the word. I'm sorry. And or something like that. Something would be appropriate. Maybe somebody behind Covington had better show some brains because he might be UFC champion here, and he's just unfortunately proven to just be completely average in the upstairs department. You know what I mean? Just a parrot repeating the same catchphrases, the fake smile, stuff like that. He's no Conor McGregor.
Yeah, he's no Conor McGregor, and for people who try to make that comparison, that's ridiculous because Conor McGregor's, brash, yes, arrogant, yeah, maybe even over the line. I think the things he said about Khabib's wife, definitely over the line. That takes it to a different level. That's like insulting someone's children. You don't do that. You just don't do that. Mike Tyson famously said, I'm going to eat your children to Lennox Lewis. And I couldn't believe that I was hearing him say that. I was shocked. It was disgusting. But, he was selling a fight, right? Well, this isn't, there's more to selling a fight than just being a fucking idiot. And I don't think Colby Covington, as you stated earlier, I don't think he has the ability to be anything more than completely ignorant of everything around him because he's so dumb that he probably doesn't even understand at any point that you could sit him down and say, look, Colby, man, you shouldn't say that about somebody because this happened and he's dealing with this forever. And this is a horrible thing. And this isn't about fighting. What you did there was just way over the line. And I can't believe it. I will bet you $1. I'd like to see Bruce Buffer's face when he said that. I'm going to go back and watch it in just a minute. I know Bruce well enough to know that he's disgusted by that comment. And many of the other people that I don't know if they're there anymore or not. I say Bruce because I know he's still there. I don't know a lot of the other people that are involved in the UFC now, but we used to know quite a bit of them. And to have, how many of them applauded that? How many of them smiled and said that was okay? I didn't see any of that, but I do see a bunch of Trumpsters on here supporting Colby and saying, oh yeah, and you know what else? The president called him. Well, whippy shit. The president hasn't even come out and said anything about 102 people being butchered this weekend over people that follow his every word. I challenge you to find any other president. Ronald Reagan would have come out and said, that's detestable. That is not who we are as a nation. It's embarrassing. It's embarrassing to our nation for this man to be represented. And then our commander-in-chief calls him and says, way to go. His kids are there. Way to go. Right? It's detestable. And they make this sound like it's nothing, like this is just fine. And it's not fine. There's nothing okay about it. If Matt Hughes had Down syndrome, would it have been okay? If he'd had his legs blown off in the war, would have been okay too? Oh, Colby, hey, you better learn to walk because you got your legs blown off or whatever, Sergeant Dan. Is that an okay comment to make? Because if it's not, then it's not okay to make the fucking comment that you made about getting off the train tracks. You fucking moron.
I think you meant Lieutenant Dan.
What did I say?
Sergeant.
Oh yeah, whatever.
No, I understand.
I know. Look, you know what? People are saying, well, in the heat of the moment, he was inspired, or he was overcome with the heat of the moment. So maybe I'm overcome with the heat of the moment a little bit. But tomorrow I'm not going to regret saying the things I've said. And if I do, I'll come back and go, in the heat of the moment, I was extremely angry, and I shouldn't have said that. That was the wrong thing to say. Maybe I will. Maybe I will think that. But he didn't. He doubled down on it, and he repeated it and laughed about it. Ha ha, so funny.
Yeah. All right, I'm Miguel Dorati, and that's Chad. Like we've been bouncing around about Colby Covington and his post-fight rant after his win against Robbie Lawler at the UFC in Newark, New Jersey this past August 3rd, Saturday, just last night. The comments knocking Matt Hughes, the former champion, after he went through a traumatic brain injury in an accident. And Matt Hughes tied here to the CRP through his recovery at BioAccelerator, and we wanted to chime in here and express support for Matt and not for Colby. So with that, we'll leave it, and we'll touch on this subject again with some of the rest of the team as well. I am Miguel Dorati, and that's Chad Lack. Any final words, boss?
Yeah, I apologize for my language. I'm sorry about that. That's out of line.
And with that, we're wrapping up one more.
Namaste.